Please be seated, and let's move on to the next session. Okay. Hi, everybody. We're already running late, so let's move on. Let me see. Yeah, we're already running 6 minutes late. So let's move on to the next session. After taking the burden of the surveys, because we all feel like surveys, you know, is when somebody mentioned about human-based, I only think of human resources, to be honest, to fill in the surveys. Anyway, EOSC in the countries. We're going to have a session on how the situation of open science and relating open science to EOSC is in the countries. And the session is divided into two main speakers, Ute and Inmaculada Figueroa from Spain. Then we will have a round table with 4 examples of EOSC in the countries, and hopefully there will be a small debate afterwards. So let's start the session with Ute, who will give us the briefing or overview from the EOSC Association. Thank you.
Let's see whether it works. So I will have the pleasure to provide you with an overview of a common joint effort. And this has been an effort between you, the community, the representatives of the steering board, and the European Commission. So it's not our credit that I want to take here, it's really something we have done together and achieved together. And this is how the session is being laid out, and Isabel has just introduced it. So, setting the scene, what are the numbers and what are the facts and figures we should look at? We are, and you've heard it and you're all aware, we are in a tripartite collaboration made up of the European Commission, the EOSC Association, and the EOSC Steering Board. And this is the EOSC Steering Board. Lots of friendly people coming from the ministry and the funding agencies of the member states and the associated countries, meeting on a regular basis in order to shape EOSC-related developments in their countries. This is us, the EOSC Association, the voice of the community. We are 250 member organizations coming from across Europe representing research performing organizations, service providers, and the funders, and that was at our last meeting in May in Brussels. And together, we are in a partnership and a tripartite collaboration. So, and this is, also old slides, but it's good to repeat them because we've been working in this and will be working in this for the next years. So the EOSC Association and the European Commission, they have a partnership that is governed by the Memorandum of Understanding. And that memorandum also informs all the monitoring activities you have heard of before. And when the member states and the associated countries meet with the European Commission, they form the steering board. And there they discuss their issues of how to move and advance open science and EOSC in their countries and contexts. And when we all meet together and inform each other, and this is what we have been trying to achieve by working more and more closer together, is this, we shouldn't miss it, the tripartite collaboration. So that's what we have been doing since 2021. And then it was actually at the end of 2021 when we had the first European tripartite event. And that was actually a Zoom meeting, to be honest. So we had a Zoom meeting, and in this Zoom meeting we had breakout rooms where we then discussed how can we better go into the countries and find out what's going on there and what's needed. And then we said, okay, we organize those tripartite events on a national level. And now that have been really commitments on a national level that people said, yes, we're going to host it, we're going to organize it, we're going to inform an agenda, and we want to find out what people need on a national level. And that's what we embarked on, and it was a kind of a roadshow in 2022, and we visited a lot of countries, and then we even had that's the next click, a kickoff event where we didn't participate in France. So, it was really a very exciting year, and the format has proven to be a good one. And what we have achieved over this first year, that's too fast now, over this first year is in this roadshow, we reached out to almost 1,300 people. Some of the events were small, purely on-site, others were hybrid, and others were mostly online. That's why we sometimes have also very, very high numbers. That was 2022 alone. And then all the countries who didn't have an event in 2022 said, we need our own event. We also need to bring the community together. And that's what we have done since the beginning of this year in 2023. And new activities are already in the pipeline for the time after the symposium. So what I want to do now is, I want to guide you through those events, because in the end it was you who have organized it with your resources and your effort. And the first one, that's the caveat, has not been a tripartite event. It has been a national event in Switzerland. Switzerland, unfortunately, not associated to Horizon Europe. So there we did the event without the commission. And they brought the community together. And it was over 100 people meeting in Bern, being organized by the ministry together with our mandated organization from ETH Zurich. And I guess they're in the room here, Anna, and then also Sebastian, but from Switch. So then we went on, the next one was Hungary. So János, Ildikó, they hosted us, Kifu, in March, where we met different setting, different topics, but nevertheless, I mean, we need to make it a start, because everything is dependent on what are the national needs, and they are different in every country, as I said. After that, we went to the University of Sofia, one of our members who then did it together with their national configurations in Sofia. And just a few days later, and I hope, Ivan, you're going to report about that, the national tripartite event in Zagreb in Croatia. So always, and Ivan, since you're wearing, let's say, two hats here, you are the mandated organization as well as the steering board. So what was it then? What does that is? A two-partite event with a, anyway, so it was intensive. And then the Netherlands, organized by the ministry and served the mandated organization. The board was there, Karel, of course. So, I mean, it is always a commitment also of people to organize it, to be there, to prepare an agenda, and to invite the community to understand it. And then just before the summer break, we were actually pretty busy. So we started on the 31st of May in Slovakia, also they are organized by our mandated organization there and Anna. And then we moved on the next day to the Czech Republic, where it was linked to the Open Science Days there at the National Library of Technology, organized by CESNET. And we had there a large audience, because also in that sense they linked it to another event, which is also a smart move if you want to reach out to a big community that maybe is not that familiar with EOSC yet, but comes more from the Open Science movement. Then we went to Italy. That was a large event, a very big and a broad community with Giorgio, Maria Luisa, and hosted at CNR. And the last stop before the summer was in Montpellier with Volker, organized, commission was there, the university, and there to discuss where do we stand at the moment, what needs to happen next. You think that was a lot of information? Yes. You want to read what the outcomes were or look at the presentations? Oh my God, I forgot Spain. That's so recent. So just 2 days ago, we were here in Madrid and we had a Spanish national tripartite event. We already had a joint one with Portugal a year ago, but this time, the first time when we focused on our host country, and it was well received, I would say. Ne? A lot of information, a lot of going on in this country, and we learned about it on Tuesday. Now, what are the numbers? Are they fully updated, Isabel, also with Spain included? So we are close to 1,000 participants this year alone. And then we have reached this year 12 countries, and I think we have the total numbers here, and they're very impressive. So over 2,000 people in just 1.5 years that we have, reached out to, and I think even more is the number of the speakers, because those are the people who spend their time, who come to the event, who prepare a talk, and who are then the ones who continue reaching out to their communities. So that is what we have done so far. And as I said, if that has been too much information, we have a new website. For those of you who have not yet appreciated it, this is the place to go. You will find all the information there under tripartite. You can click the countries, and there you find national policies. You do find the information about the event, the presentations. This is where to basically find out more and who to contact, who are the members, who in the country is involved in Infra-EOSC grant. There you'll find it. Now, what were the topics? The topics were as diverse as the countries, as the communities, as the maturity of the open science development there. I'm not going to read out the list. It was depending on the needs and the interests of the countries. However, we are here today at the EOSC Symposium to start talking about the future. And you have heard a lot, and I could imagine that much of that might not be that clear yet. For example, what is a node and what is it not? And where does your country stand, or your thematic group or your domain relative to the node? And what I would like to invite you to do is that when we go, because we now know we have already countries who go into the second iteration of a national tripartite event, like in Ireland or in Poland still this year, think about how can we use those events in order to shape the future. The first round of events was about bringing communities together, identifying them. Now we have to be more focused in the sense of where does our country see itself and our communities relative to the node concept and the EOSC Federation. And with that, I hope I have provided you with a good overview and you're ready for an interactive discussion before Immaculada will give you an overview from the steering board side. Thanks a lot.
We have time for one short question, if there is any question in the audience. Well, I do have one quick question, Ute. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Isabel Diaz, Deputy Vice President for International Cooperation of the Spanish Research Council. We are a mandated organization in Spain. Anyway.
Founding member of the EOSC Association.
Yeah, well, anyway, my question is, we just had our tripartite event, and we're very happy because we really feel we're mobilizing the community. But on the contrary, I think we have failed, or we have a room for improvement, let's say, in bringing that community to the EOSC Symposium. So can you please give your insight?
Okay, I mean, we are actually, look, we had last year the first EOSC Symposium, where we had, let's say, plenty of space, and we had everything hybrid or online. I don't know if it was hybrid, it was online. I think you could follow it. We had, I mean, it was a very good participation. However, there was room for more, and I think 20 people online. So it was, I mean, in terms of, it didn't make sense to be online. This year, we do have the limited capacity here with the room of 350 people, which is good because it's sold out, and it was quickly sold out, and I think we have 200 people who are following us online. Going forward, I think we should be more flexible to then say, okay, we do have more space for interactions. I mean, it's also encouraging to see how well it has been received here, so that we say we can be more daring for 2024, and I can already promise you we're working on that. So, and I mean, stay until tomorrow at the final then plenary, then you will know where we're going next and how much space there is. So, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Ute. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. So our next speaker is Immaculada Figueroa from our ministry, since we are hosting is our national case. Thank you, Immaculada.
So hello again. I'm going to try to give a view of how the EOSC is running in Spain with this presentation. As you know, okay. As it has been already said several times, the member states are included in the partnership through the EOSC steering board, that is an expert group of the Commission, where we sit together, the member states and the associated countries and the Commission. And our role is, and also we have the possibility, or we have mandated organization, as has already mentioned Isabel, that interface with us within the EOSC Association. In our case, as already said, is the Spanish Research Council, the organization that was mandated by the ministry to be in the association. And also, we exchange with the association and with the Commission in all for all the different topics that are under discussion for the development of EOSC. in principle, what are the tasks that the EOS steering board has in the building of this partnership and in the building of EOS? I will say that we serve as a partnership interface with the countries. The members of the steering group are the people that are representing our ministries, and we serve as interface between the partnership and the countries. How, in one way, bringing national policies, priorities, and interests to the EOS partnership, and in the other way around, serving as interface with our ministries in order to bring to the ministries all the EOS development needs and requirements. We also have in Spain at least, we have the role to coordinate national actors, efforts, and activities at national level to promote the involvement in EOSC. And also integrate all the discussion, all the activity that we are doing in EOS with a rather big aspect of other committees and other activities that we are running at the European level in the framework of the European research area, in order to have this alignment in the discussion and position that we are bringing to the different fora. EOS steering board current activities, we have opportunity yesterday from our chair, from Volker, to have an extensive view of where we are and in EOSC. And I just want to summarize that we are running into BIAS. We are working with policies and with monitoring. These are our main activities in which we are involved during this period. In terms of EOS policies, we have two main strands or main lines of activities. We are working for a better coordination between research infrastructures and EOS. This is in answering to the mandate of the Council of the European Union that requests through the Council conclusion in 2022 to do it. Research infrastructure are fair data providers and knowledge hub for open science. They are examples also of member states and associated countries joint coordination for a joint investment in the construction or operation of these infrastructures, with rather 2 billion euros expended from the member states in the construction and operation of these infrastructures. So it is a good example in order to exchange with EOS, how to construct EOS. Also, they have legal structure, so this facilitates the federation of the research infrastructures data and services in EOS. So they are important building block also for EOS. This exercise tries to do to reduce the fragmentation in data production, curation, computing, storage, and also to increase on data productivity. We don't need to overlap the activities that we are doing in one and the other side. We have to work together. These are public investment, what we are putting in both sides, and we have to take benefit of that. With this sense, it was established a task force from the S3 EOS task force that is working in all of these issues in order to coordinate the efforts and learn from each other how to work together and how are the benefits we can obtain from one side and the other for constructed EOSC. The other main line of activity is the discussion on the future model of EOS Vision 2027, and especially thinking in the next framework program 10. And there, as you had opportunity yesterday, we are talking about governing, about finances, about technical description of the system, and all of this is under this discussion, in which all of the countries are involved through the steering board. The second line of activity, as I mentioned, was monitoring. We have had the opportunity to go through the monitoring in the previous sessions, so I'm not going to enter in that because I think you know more even than me on monitoring after the meeting, after the session. Well, the steering board, I see the steering board like a place for knowledge sharing and for mutual learning. Each country is different by nature, on governance, on policies, on structure, on the processes for decision making, on interest. So we have to take this into consideration for building something together. Steering board facilitates the sharing information between the member countries and the possibility to learn from each other. My impression is that a unique model cannot fit the needs of all the countries. We have to have flexibility in order to make room for all the countries being involved in the construction of EOS. For this, in this context, I would like just to go briefly about the system, the Spanish system, in order you know how we are organized. We have a legal framework, that it is on the top of our legal frameworks. We have the science, technology, and oh, sorry. This is saying like Ilaria. I didn't learn. Okay, perfect. So the legal framework is here. We have the Spanish law for science and technology, and that is developed through the strategy, the Spanish Science, Technology and Innovation Strategy, that is aligned with the European plans in times, you see, 2021, 2027, and this strategy is developed through the state plan. That are, in this case, these are plans that we develop by 2 per period. So we are finishing the 2021-23, and we are starting in next year with the next state plan for the period 24-27. And one important element that has been introduced in this year is the National Open Science Strategy, where all the issues related with open science and EOS are considered. This strategy is based in 4 pillars and has 17 measures that for its development. In particular, Pillar A is the one that it is in which we, in the part related to the interoperability, EOS is mentioned. So the actions related with EOS are there in the Pillar A under interoperability. And this legal law framework is supported or give the frame for the activity of all our system of science and technology in Spain. This is a rather broad system that it is composed by different elements. We have the e-infrastructures. In this part, the most important things are REDIRIS. REDIRIS is our national scientific network. That is our node in GIANT. We have the Ibergrid for distributed computing, that it is a common effort with Portugal. We have the network for supercomputing. Oh, sorry, Pauline, sorry. We have the supercomputing network, that is supercomputing and data infrastructure. Then we have the research infrastructures. In research infrastructure, we have two lines. The first one is what we call ICTS, Infraestructuras Científicas y Técnicas Singulares. We have 29 national infrastructure in 62 sites along the territory of Spain. Some of them are distributed ones. And then also all the effort that we put in Spain for the participation in ESRI. As the Research Performance Organization, we have 4 research performance organizations. One is the Research Council, that is the biggest one. We have the CIEMAT, that is for energy and environment. We have the Instituto Astrofísico de Canarias, that is for the research in astronomy. And in the Instituto Salud Carlos III, that is the organization that is behind the research in health. Funding and policy in MICIN, the Ministry of Science and Innovation, is the responsible and competent in all the aspects related with science and innovation. But this is with the coordination with the rest of the sectoral ministries that have also lines specific for research. And additionally, we are obliged to coordinate with our regional governments. So this is a puzzle that is not completely easy to deal with when we have to do an exercise. In terms of funding agencies, we have 4 funding agencies. The State Agency for Research, the Instituto Salud Carlos III, that is also a funding agency, the CDTI, that is the Innovation Agency, and the AMFECIT, that is also contributing, coordinating several aspects, in particular the implementation of the strategy for open science, and is also a funder. And we, by royal decree, was created a body, that's advisory body to the ministry, that is, it is responsible to promote e-science activity in Spain. This is the network for e-science that we have the pleasure to have as coordinator, Nacho Blanquer, that you know well. I am out of time. Just for community engagement, to tell you that we are doing several exercises. The most frequent is the meeting that are held in the frame of the network of Spanish, the Spanish network for e-science, that meet regularly, one per month, gathering all the actors in the EOSC Association, and organized by the network and by our mandated organization. We have, of course, the national events in order to promote the participation of our actors in the framework program. And we also require, in an ad hoc way, this organization to help us in the moment to take decisions, such as the moment in which we are. And of course, the national tripartite events, in which we thank the EOS Association for helping on that. I'm not going to enter. We have had the two, but have been already presented by Uti. So this is the landscape that we have in Spain. This is the landscape in which we have to move for taking the decisions. And I think it's important for all of us to know how each country is organized in order to see how we can get or we can obtain the final result. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Immaculada. I think we will skip the question because we are already out of time. Yeah, I will ask now our panelists to join the round table. We're going to have 4 EOSC in the country cases from Croatia, Germany, Greece, and Sweden. And I really thank you, all of you, for being here and sharing with us your views. So let me first do a round of... Here. Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, I think first I will give them just one sentence to introduce themselves so I don't misspell their names. So please introduce yourselves.
Good morning. My name is Kostas Koumatos. I'm the head of strategy and proposals unit in the Directorate of E-Infrastructures at GRNet. GRNet is the Greek NRN and also the mandate organization for Greece.
Hello, my name is Marion Steinberger. I'm head of unit at the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research. And my unit deals with research data and especially the national research data infrastructure that we are building in Germany.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to say my name, because many of you call me Ivan, which is not okay. My name is Ivan Maric. I'm CEO of CERCE, which is University Computing Center, digital infrastructure organization providing digital infrastructure for science in Croatia. I have many hats. One of these is in a steering board member, and also CERCE is mandated organization Croatia in EOSC.
And thanks for for inviting me too. So I'm Sumitra from the Swedish Research Council in Sweden. The Swedish Research Council is a funding agency, one of the larger ones in Sweden, and we are commissioned to be the mandated organization, but we also support the ministry in the steering board.
Well, thank you very much. I am glad that you like saying your name by yourselves. Anyway, let's move on to the main question for the speakers, which is, what are your national level open science developments? What makes them successful, and what are your preparations for EOSC, and how do you plan to collaborate at European level? And I like the last sentence, say, please be as honest, it says here, as you prefer, but you be as honest as possible. Because if we are not honest in a real situation in our countries, we can't really move forward, or we can't really reflect ourselves in your cases, and therefore move forward. So I will give you the voice that we have in order. You didn't sit in the order that we were supposed to sit, so I will give you. I will give first the word to Ivan, please. Croatia.
Okay, thank you. Once again, good morning, everybody. So it's really, I don't know where to start. I didn't structure my appearance here like Kostas and the others. So let's start from the beginning. I think 20 years ago we start our vision of Open Science Cloud. At that time it was called e-commons. And I should say here, 20 years ago in Greece, in Athens, we start ERG. In the ERG blue paper and white paper, at that time we set this e-commons policy, which means e-infrastructure, computing, networking, but also data, software, and workflows, and the whole idea of building national and pan-European federated structure of e-commons, publicly funded e-commons, realized recently in what is called EOSC. At that time, in Croatia, SRCE especially followed this vision of e-commons, and we structure our catalog of services, our mission and vision around building the digital infrastructure, many components of this digital infrastructure, national computing storage components, data middleware components, up to the information system, and lately the CRIS system, national CRIS system. And we follow the European old-style three-tier model, institution, national, and pan-European. So basically, from the standing point of SRCE as institution, which was architectured and built organizationally, etc., to serve the national research community, we also becoming the part of pan-European or European community, and we think this is the best way how we can deal with the community as large as in Croatia. I was amazing. First time I saw this tripartite number of participants, and then I calculate quickly, as I like this style of thinking. Basically, 100 participants in Croatian tripartite event is the most participant this year of one event. Having in mind that we serve less than 1% of researchers in this European 2 million researchers that we are serving, I would think that in Germany I would expect 2,000 participants in similar events. So relatively speaking, we are doing well. Now, honestly, like any country, I think mandated organization or I like yesterday Karel comparison. We are doing something expecting to be faster and faster, especially me, which I'm 20 plus years in this field, and I'm expecting. My patience is very low over the years, but I know that we are trying to digitally transform, open science transform a huge sector, and this is very old sector, research and education. And especially in Croatia, we are not dividing research with higher education. So mission of SRCE is basically to serve research and higher education, which are very much connected. We didn't spend too much time speaking about higher education on this plenum, but I think it's very important. Overall, 2 years ago, we started National Open Science Cloud Initiative under the auspices of Ministry of Science and the Croatian Science Foundation. And this May, we produce a National Action Plan for Open Science. So basically, we combine top-down and bottom-up approach. And in parallel with the work that is done in EOSC on different groups, we did the same. And we did this inside the NIFOS project, which was one of 5B projects of EOSC, National Initiative for Open Science with colleagues from coordinated by Greece, but also this was the way that we, in parallel, build the national part of this tripartite event. And what we said in Croatia is basically fundamentally, theoretically okay, and now the implementation part is basically how we go to the research community, to the communities, and spread the word about the open science. And my thinking here and our thinking is basically that we should start at higher education. That's why we include higher education, that the main prerequisite for open science is basically to spread the culture of sharing. And this should be done, the culture of sharing is in below every e-commons or open science initiative, and this should be done on a study program at the faculty at the university. And then we should be patient and wait for next generation of digitally competent students, PhDs, to come, and then we will really have the open science as a way of doing business. Okay, I can go on, but this is my 3 minutes, I think. Enough.
Thank you very much, Ivan. Let's give the word to Germany, please.
Okay, thank you. Well, Germany has a different approach, I would say. I mainly want to talk about our main contribution to EOSC, which is the Nationale Forschungsdateninfrastruktur, in short NFDI, the National Research Data Infrastructure. Well, what is this? In a way, it's supposed to be a network of researchers dealing with data competencies. They are discussing, they are meeting, they are trying to, establish standards, metadata. They are trying to gather information, gather data in an infrastructure so that the whole of Germany, the whole of German research has access to this data. And it's really a long-term approach, because we started discussing this in about 2010, 2012, when there were recommendations to establish that kind of infrastructure. And it was finally founded by the federal government and all the 16 Länder. So Spain, I hear you when you talk about regions and taking them on board. So we funded this infrastructure in 2019. It's a 10-year funding we give them, so until 2028. And it's quite a considerable sum. This year we gave overall about 60 million euros. From next year on, we will give 90 million euros. And the great thing about this is that it's completely bottom up. So we charge the German Research Foundation, the DFG, many of you probably know this, to prepare 3 rounds of proposals. And then the community, the research community, could come up with ideas. And they are the so-called consortia. And then in 3 rounds, overall 27 consortia were selected. We had an international expert body that really discussed a lot, gave ideas for improvement. So we ended up since March this year with 27 consortia. 26 of them are disciplinary. So researchers from the different disciplines, natural sciences, social sciences, and so on, they meet. They are funded for overall 5 years, but they can be prolonged. And the interesting thing is then, during the 3 rounds of proposals, we realized, actually many researchers, they have the same problems when it comes to basic services. So then the idea was to select a new consortia that really focuses on basic services. That just started now, and they are dealing really with services for the overall community of researchers, no matter which discipline. So they just started their work. It will be really interesting because we already have to start the evaluation of this gigantic project. In 2025, 2026, we will have an idea of whether we can go on like this or whether we have to modify a little bit the structure. But overall, we try to say our researchers, we know that by 28, 29, the work is not done. No, on the contrary, this will be a continuous process, so even after this funding phase. And of course, many of you will now say, okay, but there's the EOSC, so how is the link to the EOSC? And we have the mandated organization, which is the NFDI, and which is really our voice, or the voice of the German researchers. And I think this is also the biggest challenge that we will see when we try to somehow find synergies between the NFDI and the EOSC. because the EOSC is very much top-down, and the NFDI is very much bottom-up. And our wish, our request to EOSC is really to listen to the researchers and what they need, and to make sure that what they need is really taken into account. And for me, it was quite interesting yesterday, and then I will finish, when I think the Commission presented what the EOSC core, EOSC node, EOSC procurement will be like, because I saw all the mobile phones going up, taking pictures. So it was like everybody, okay, so now we get some more information, but we don't really know what to expect from next year onwards. So we really hope that whoever wins this procurement will speak to the scientists, go into the countries, see what is already there, so that we really will have synergies for the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah. You see the reaction to the bottom up, so I think we're all there. Greece, please.
Okay, Greece is a little bit different. We are not Germans, and we are not that organized. That's for sure. That's a starting point. However, GRNet for the last 20 years, as Ivan said already, is involved in doing exactly that, right? Transferring skills, transferring know-how happening in the European level, like EOSC, like it used to be the commons that Ivan said, used to be the grid, used to be a number of different, let's say, ideas, concepts, trying to make the European research area as a common playground or a common ecosystem. We've been doing that for quite some time. This is why GNet is a mandate organization. This is why GNet is always trying to, through a number of projects, regional projects, is trying to bring also the Southeast Europe on par with the rest of Europe. And we've done that. The latest iteration was the NIFOS Europe project that Ivan also mentioned. One of the key objectives of this project was to actually build national initiatives, national open science initiatives. One of them was also the Greek National Open Science Initiative, which I'm honored to be the vice president of. It's an initiative. It doesn't have any funding. It doesn't have to be as honest as requested. It doesn't have any funding, but all the organizations that are part of it are somehow already active in EOSC on their own merit. What we are lacking a lot is the national funding to organize ourselves to build, let's say, the national network. And this is the major impact. However, that doesn't mean that we are not doing anything. We've actually produced it 3 years ago, and what we call the Open Science Strategy document. It's a draft, it's not a policy, it's not an approved, let's say, or vetted by the ministry or the government kind of document. However, big parts of it are already part of what we call the Bible of Digital Transformation of the Ministry of Digital Governance, which is a helping tool, but there is no funding allocated with that. It just, let's say, some entries in our, let's say, ideas document that is helping us move forward and try to seek funding in a number of different scenarios. And the concept that GNet is building is we are trying to, with our community, we have already a competence center of skills. We want to, for HPC, we are building now the similar competence center for skills for EOSC, and we want to, around that, with the community again, because we believe that all of the community should be on board. Otherwise, if you're doing it on your own, you're not succeeding. You're just spending money. And we are not German, as I said. We don't have that much money. We are trying to seek funding in order to build what we call the Greek node, or the national node, or the regional node if needed, because we are still NIFOS project. The NIFOS project also maintain and operate, I forgot to mention that, what we call a pre-production environment to curate all the services, data sources, providers that exist in Southeast Europe, and make them to mature them enough so that they're part of EOSC. In essence, that for me is a node, or a node before the node notion existed. We have the experience, we have the know-how. Our problem, or what we are finding for, is trying to find funding and try to find, let's say, the right balance, what needs to happen nationally, regionally, and what needs to happen in Europe. This is where it's becoming a lot of interesting where the ball will set, what is required. I personally am a strong believer that not all nodes will be similar. There will be always differences. There will always be different natures. We've heard already both the example from Croatia and Germany, they are completely different. And that's the nature of Europe. This is something that we need to adhere to. That's all for me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now Sweden is our last speaker.
And yet another country that has other
Other view.
peculiarities. Yeah. So I guess I could say that the Swedish Research Council's role in this is so we're more top-down in our role in working with these issues at the moment, at least. So we have had a commission from the government since 2017 to coordinate and follow up the national work on open access to research data on a national level. And then EOSC came along a few years after that. So we're in a position now to try to coordinate those two efforts and make sure that there is as much alignment as possible in those efforts, let's say. I think as a research funder too, there's a lot to, I hear a lot of things, examples here where the funding side of the Research Council could also coordinate itself better and align with the EOSC initiatives, which is something we'll have to take onward. I think also from a policy side, so during the Swedish presidency, which preceded the Spanish one, it was on the agenda, which was hopefully effectful. I think it was mentioned in the opening statement. There was a declaration after a conference in June where EOSC is specifically mentioned, where all the countries are actually encouraged to speed up this transition, which hopefully will also have an impact nationally. I mean, we're one of the countries who have signed it as well, of course. So I think there's a lot to learn in terms of tripartite events. So there was this Nordic one, and the Nordics, I guess, is an interesting region. There's a lot of commonalities, but also differences, but we can work together more. I think there's plans on trying to build on that, coordinated by Finland. And on a national level, one of the things we're planning from the Swedish Research Council together with the Association for Swedish Higher Education Institutions is an event, strategic event with all the universities and higher education institutions in Sweden, their principals, to have a one-day event to meet with them, to showcase things, to describe these policies, and maybe get one kind of a bottom-up level, one type of stakeholder on board and informed about these things that are happening and that we're working on. So those are a few examples.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So we have quite a variety of scenarios. So does anybody want to reflect on what has been heard? Any questions in the audience? Do we have any question in the Slido? José María, por favor. A microphone.
Yeah, it's a general question, but I think it's critical for research infrastructures. Going back to the steering board and to the tripartite events, it is clear that research infrastructure are expected to contribute with fair data and fair data according to whatever would be the requirements of the node. However, this is an effort on the side of the research infrastructures that needs to be implemented and needs to be in the business plan of the research infrastructure. The steering board, with the representation of the member state, or is a fantastic place to really consider that they are pushing EOS, but at the same time they are pushing many other things, and they have to be coherent with that. And the tripartite events could be a fantastic way for the country to know which is the real base that they have and what they have to do for that base. I mean, for that is a generic question, but at the same time, it's sort of saying we need the steering board to take into account all these things, and we need the tripartite for them to have a very concrete input.
Yeah, well, I believe this is a question for our Spanish tripartite. But anyway, does anybody want to comment on this, please?
one of the topics that is probably the topic in the research community is a question of incentives and rewards. And this is a topic in my community. In Croatia, basically, we have to change the current traditional way of career path of researcher or in a higher education institution and implement more open access, open science principles in this. And few weeks ago, the Croatian Agency for Science and Higher Education, which is in charge of accreditation and reaccreditation of institutions and study program in universities, basically changed their criteria. And now we have a new criteria which is strictly related to open science, or open access to publication, which is important. So there are mechanisms on a top level where you can push for the open science. We had discussion about financial incentiveness, which is probably related to infrastructure providers or operators, where project-based funding, which is now increasingly in all European countries, especially in public research, which we are serving, is dominant. But what after the project? We have to figure out the business model or the model where the continuation of development of tools and services is assured long-term sustainability model. And this is top issue for the steering board, but also for the mandated organization in their own countries. And this is very much related to different funding model in different countries. We are really very different from Croatia, which is 100% publicly funded research, to countries where have more portion of private funding of research. So these differences have to be taken into account when we set a European policy. But I like the European style of doing policies, and this is solidarity principle, which is, I think unique in the global world, and this is something what Europe should export to the global communication and collaboration in science.
Thank you, Ivan. There is another question.
Sorry, but one more very important thing. In tripartite event in Croatia, we realized that money is not important in some cases. Researchers want to be referenced to the data they produce. They are really open to provide data until their name is referenced. So sometimes the reference is very important.
Thank you.
I would like to ask a question about this discrepancy between the very heavy top-down model coming from Europe and, like we've just heard from Germany, the bottom-up of something like the NFDI. I feel that the EOSC Association is in the middle of that, because you have the steering board and you have the mandated organizations. So my question to the panel is there an experience of best practice of how steering board members and mandated organizations, at least nationally, try and close that gap between top-down and bottom-up?
Yeah.
I think not yet. As I mentioned, we are still starting to work on the NFDI, but I think in a few years we will see whether our approach was the right one, because already now we realize it takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. But as I said, we want to have the researchers on board, so maybe the EOSC at one point in time they will overtake us. But then the challenge will rather be, how do we ensure the interoperability between what we are producing in Germany and in all the other countries, and in this EOSC, I wanted to say UFO for the beginning, because at the moment for me it's a bit a UFO, not so much the association, but when it comes really to this EOSC node core idea. So, well, I hope in the end we will find a middle way, and we will all profit from this, but I don't know. So let's meet again in, let's say, 4 years at the next symposium, and then we will see.
Sumitra, would you like to add something on this?
Nothing new, but I think it's a really good point. I think it's an important thing to bear in mind going forward. And
well, do you know the example of good, solid governance in pan-European scale that lasts for the last 10 years? We follow the model of best practice Dutch model, but let's realize in Croatia we don't have manpower to follow it. In ideal situation, mandated organization and representation in such a body should be constituted by representative from ministry and subject matter expert. But we are not. We followed 25 programs, 13 missions, whatever, and there are some small countries, and then there is even like persons like me that are existing in many small countries with several heads, and sometimes we are not equipped, we are not powered to follow the best governance model we can imagine that suit us all. But this is, as I'm sure you're aware of, challenging in any forum you are working in.
Well, we have raised two of the main issues of this problem. There is a question from the...
Yes.
One more
Sorry.
comment. I will give you also the Greek option on this, right? just for the hell of it. As I said, there is Hellenic Open Science Initiative. It's actually a voluntary organization that there are 15, let's say, organizations part of it. GNET, as the mandate organization, according to the Hellenic Open Science Initiative MOU, is obliged to take the opinion of the Hellenic Open Science Initiative and push that forward as much as possible. This is the regulation, our mandate, as how we were chosen to be the mandate organization of Greece. To do that, what I try to do is always inform everybody, the organizations, as much as possible, whatever is happening. But I'm one person doing that, and the whole of the amount of information to be circulated and to explain to different people that are not involved at all at EOSC is huge.
Exactly.
So in essence, I say, do whatever you think is best, Kostas. Move on.
Yeah, we are at the same pace in Spain. Please, the question from the...
Yes, from the Zoom, an interesting question saying, how do the countries work to get researchers involved in the process of building an infrastructure, and how to encourage early adopters and give them real platforms to impact the developments? To all the panel.
Very good question. I'm willing to hear the answer.
From my example, basically we structure our portfolio catalog with a community involvement in a governance model. So every component we are in charge of coordinating, operating in Croatia basically has a governance structure which involves financing organization, operators, and user communities. And this is this fine model, and then we have several of these for national data repository system, for data services we provide, for computing, high-performance computing, involvement of community, because we like to develop our components by the needs of the community, not reinventing or thinking what community needs. And this is necessary in a modern service providing or data infrastructure providing. But the problem is, as Costa says, the involved community is basically very passive sometimes, and this body is tending to become very passive after 1 or 2 years after kickoff. So the major question or challenges for EOSC is also how to keep alive after the initial kickoff and not to go down over the time. So fresh talents, I think what we need is basically, if I look in the room, I don't see too many. So fresh talents are what we need, and the new talents that we aboard. And this is why I repeat again, maybe I'm bored, this is why we think very important to go to the universities, higher education, and connect at the early stage with the PhD students.
Well, at CSIC, in the Spanish case, we are, like Greece, we're trying to awaken the communities. And the way I see it is that we have to build like a small EOSC in every single, not country, institution. I mean, at CSIC, we are 14,000 employees, 124 institutes, every research topic, right? So how do you connect the data infrastructure? First you have to diagnose, locate them, and then let them talk together. I mean, you have to build the engagement, in my opinion, in our experience, bottom up, until you meet with the top bottom. But we have to meet at some point. So any final one take-home message, please?
I think the the important thing that we are missing and we are sort of reference somehow is that we need to have small EOS. We need to transfer skills, right? It's not all about the technical consideration, technical solutions, and bringing everything on par. This is not an easy part, it's the easier part. The difficult part is honing the skills, training the people, keep them engaged as much as possible. It takes a lot of manpower, a lot of effort, and a lot of money to do so, but it's imperative in order to have something which is successful. This is where GNet has been doing this for ages, and we know how to do it, and we know how it can be done. And this is where perhaps regional efforts, or not only just national, can help on, let's say, reducing the cost sometimes, or making things a bit more easier to maintain. But it's still that it needs to go to every single institution. As I said, the Hellenic Open Science has 14, let's say, research organizations. It's not all the organizations in Greece yet. There are many more that need to be done. There are 30 universities that need to join, that they are not part of it yet. This is one of the processes we are doing, trying to get them engaged. And even if you get engaged, for example, the University of Thessaloniki, it's a huge university of 30,000 students. Like it covers every faculty you can imagine. Taking them engaged in every aspect will be they will need to build their own little EOSC inside.
Take-home message. Please.
I will be brief. Engage the research community and ensure interoperability with everything that is already out there and is successful. And there are many successful examples.
Thank you.
My point would also be invest in people, but if you want researcher on a track, then don't put yet another overhead of job on researcher. Give them data steward, give them help that will do the job, and let researcher do science most of the time, and not some overhead or bureaucratic work.
Take-home message, Sumitra.
Okay, so how can I add to that? Well, I think, but also, yeah, I think the working on the national and the European, that balance is maybe a bit tricky, but yeah, the mini EOSCs is probably a good idea, but the EOSC with the people skills and the kind of the transition part and not the technical part is quite important, I think.
So thank you very much. I do have a final take-home message, which is there is hope. Because Germany started in 2010, so it's okay. There is hope. So thank you very much, everybody, for your interesting input. Now, time for coffee, I think.